If you have recently found yourself needing people, their words, attention, or approval more than necessary, if you are waiting for an external sign to feel good, know that you are exactly where you need to be right now. That unresolved emptiness you feel when someone withdraws from your life, that tightness rising within you when the message you expected doesn't arrive, or that collapse you feel when things don't go as planned, none of these are random. They are the clearest indicators that you have unknowingly handed over the keys to your peace to others. Many people won't tell you this clearly because it is difficult for a person to confront themselves. However, the very essence of the problem lies here. Inner happiness is not an elusive mystery or a fancy self-help phrase. On the contrary, it is a mental ability that can be strengthened, just like a muscle. When you work this muscle, you remain unshakable even if people change. You don't lose your own compass even if the direction of life shifts. Even if external conditions fluctuate, you create a solid foundation within yourself. When you reach this point, you gain a freedom that very few people experience. You no longer need anyone to feel calm, confident, peaceful, or joyful. You feel the strength you carry within, whether someone is by your side or not. Your happiness becomes your own. It becomes stable, deep, and untouchable by anyone. This journey can change the rules of the game in your life, because this journey is less about fixing the outside world and more about waking up the architect within you. Before we start, I want a small but effective step from you to strengthen your intention. Write the following sentence below with all your sincerity. Today, I am creating my own happiness. Don't just think of this as a comment. This sentence is a conscious command sent to your subconscious. It is a starting signal that internally reconfigures your mind. The moment you write this word, you declare that you are taking back control, choosing peace, and that the change starts today. If you're ready, we are starting now. 1. Taking pleasure in your own being. Learning to enjoy your own company is one of the most fundamental inner strengths you can possess. This doesn't mean building a life away from people or shutting yourself off. The real issue is being able to exist without the urge to immediately fill the silence. It is about not becoming uneasy when you are alone with your inner world and learning to find meaning within yourself instead of searching for it externally. The deep tranquility that emerges when you value your personal space is a clear serenity that appears when the mind stops running and settles down. According to Stoic philosophers, true freedom emerges at the point where the mind stops seeking external support to be complete, where it can nourish itself. For them, solitude is not a feared emptiness, but a training ground where the soul strengthens and thoughts clarify. When you stop avoiding your own thoughts, you see that what you thought was loneliness is actually a foundation you need to take root. Listening to yourself without judgment, hearing your inner voice without haste, gradually turns into an inner power ritual. The energy accumulated in this small inner sanctuary spreads to every point of your life, from your relationships to your decisions. After a while, you begin to realize that most of your anxieties stem not from the environment, but from the broken relationship you have with yourself. An unlistened to mind drifts into confusion. A mind that constantly feels the need to occupy itself loses its center. Yet when you move away from noise, screens, and the pressure of endless, "I must do something," and spend a calm moment with yourself, a surprising peace emerges. That feeling that makes you think you are lacking is actually an illusion. It is not you that is lacking. It is only your connection with yourself. Every minute you spend alone is a unique opportunity to organize your mind, understand your emotions, and strengthen your character. Because happiness is not nourished by the people beside you, but by what you feel about yourself when no one is around. When you learn to take pleasure in your own existence, the structure of your relationships also changes completely. You no longer settle for emotional scraps. You don't stay in environments where you don't belong just to avoid silence. You form closeness because you want to share, not because you are in need of someone. When your inner world is full, your choices are not shaped by fear. They are nourished by your freedom. When this happens, loneliness ceases to be a painful state for you. Your own presence turns into a reassuring harbor. When someone enters your life, this partnership is not based on an effort to fill a void. It gains meaning because it adapts to the order you have already established. Therefore, make it a habit to allocate time for yourself. A walk without haste, listening to your favorite music, writing down your feelings, resting quietly. Each of these is a way of saying, I am here for myself. When you truly adopt this sentence, life lightens up. This approach, which initially seems like a simple exercise, eventually opens the door to emotional freedom. Your emotional resilience ceases to be dependent on external influences. Your center is formed not in the outside world, but in your own inner world. When your own mind turns into a safe harbor, your days begin to flow more clearly, more organized, and more peacefully. When you tidy up your inside, you see that everything outside slowly falls into place. Because the most solid life is the life in which a person is rooted in their own existence. 2. Lightening the bonds. Releasing attachments is one of the deepest favors you can do for your mind. Because often the thoughts, desires, and expectations you carry, even without realizing it, turn into invisible chains. You cling to habits that make you feel secure, to situations you hope to control, or to things that offer short-term peace but exhaust you in the long run. The tighter you grip, the more your internal burden increases. However, this state of letting go we are talking about today is not about abandoning your dreams, the people you value, or your goals. The real issue is learning how to live without handing over your peace to them. While life is constantly changing, not releasing the things you cannot control scatters your center and fragments your energy. The moment you stop clinging, the mind relaxes, the heart loosens, and life takes on a lighter quality. The inner freedom taught by the Stoics begins exactly when you notice this distinction, knowing what you have the power over and what is not your responsibility. For them, true peace is established by releasing what is outside the domain of control. The distress people experience often arises not from the things they don't have, but from the thoughts, expectations, and conditions they refuse to let go of. You cling to the idea that a relationship should always stay the same, that a success will inevitably be in your hands, or that events must proceed according to the plan in your head. When reality changes direction, breaks occur within you. Because the clinging mind exhausts itself, while the mind that can flex breathes. When you understand that you cannot permanently possess anything, not people, not moments, not results, you begin to live life more freely. You enjoy what comes, see off what goes without resentment, and establish peace with what remains. This state of detachment does not mean becoming loveless or withdrawing from life. On the contrary, it is a level of maturity where you realize that your emotional balance is not dependent on anything external. You continue to set goals, feel excitement, and form bonds. But your resilience is no longer tied to their existence. You can enjoy life without trying to control it, appreciate it without feeling the necessity to possess it, and move forward without seeking certainty. When you move away from the obsession that everything must be this way, the real beauty of things in front of you becomes visible. Because peace is born from acceptance, not imposition. Being able to let go also requires a courageous honesty. Don't shy away from asking yourself these questions. What am I clinging to out of fear? Which expectations are exhausting me? Is what I am fighting for really worth my effort? Accepting that not everything you desire is good for your soul, and understanding that not everyone can be permanent in your life, may not be easy, but it is liberating. When you allow this, a balance is established within you. You begin to feel lighter, clearer, and more conscious. Acquiring this habit transforms you. You can start by questioning whether your desires arise from a genuine need or an inner fear. You can strengthen the practice of doing your duty without getting caught up in the outcome. And you can realize which voids rapid decisions are actually trying to fill. You can relax your mind by writing down the burdens you no longer want to carry every night. Every small step taken is a stage on the path to emotional freedom. When you learn to live without being caught in the net of expectations, And without allowing fears to drag you, you experience a peace that is not dependent on people, possessions, or results. This peace does not come from outside. It is born within you. When your mind lightens, your heart finally rests. Irishu, strengthening with simplicity. Living a simple life is one of the most powerful ways to reclaim your peace and energy. This is not merely a choice about owning few possessions. The real issue is that the mind takes a deep breath when it is not burdened with stimuli borrowed from others, unnecessary objects, and expectations unrelated to genuine needs. Simplicity is not a deprivation, but a deliberately chosen area of freedom. It represents the decision to move away from the excesses that narrow your inner world. In an oversaturated world, choosing simplicity is a wise stance. When you let go of the unnecessary, life doesn't subtract anything from you. On the contrary, it gives you back your time, your attention, and the space you need for the things you genuinely value. The tranquility taught by the Stoic philosophers emerges exactly at this point. For them, simplicity was a discipline that reduced unnecessary desires, organized the mind, and clarified character. When you let go of the excesses, you see that the fatigue you carry inside comes not from major problems, but from the accumulation of small, unnecessary things, responsibilities that don't serve you, and energy-consuming habits you unconsciously maintain. Although modern life tries to convince you that constant doing makes a person more valuable, this rush often leads you away from yourself. Simplicity causes you to turn and ask yourself these questions. What things do I truly need? What is meaningful to me? And what am I carrying just out of habit? Peace is hidden not in accumulating, but in choosing. Less noise, less rush, less pressure. When you act from a simple foundation, whether you talk, work, or rest, every action becomes deeper. When the mind stops scattering and focuses, a sense of confidence emerges that is not dependent on external conditions, but is born from your own inner clarity. This lifestyle also changes your relationships over time. You realize that the pressure of, "I'm idle, I must do something," has nothing to do with real productivity. You understand that you don't have to constantly rush to prove your worth. Interestingly, when you simplify, you achieve more. Because your decisions become clearer, your priorities become definitive, and your energy is not scattered into unnecessary areas. When you let go of the burdens that hold you back, you make room for the things that carry you forward. You no longer need external elements to maintain balance. True satisfaction emerges not when you acquire more, but when you need less. Simplicity is not a contraction. It is an expanse unburdened by loads. Along with this expanse, peace becomes a natural state. For rooting in the moment, training your presence is one of the most powerful transformations you can achieve in your life, because it calls you back to the only point where life truly flows, the present moment. The mind often drags you into memories of the past or possible anxieties that exist only in your imagination. When your attention is scattered in this way, your peace is also divided. Therefore, learning to be fixed in the present moment is a deep discipline that cleanses the mind of unnecessary noise, balances emotions, and restores inner harmony. Noticing your breath, listening to the sensations of your body, and observing what is happening both internally and externally without judgment brings you to your true center. The clarity taught by the Stoic philosophers is born right here. When the mind stops wandering and turns to the only thing you can control, the now, the pressure of thoughts begins to loosen. When you take a conscious breath, your body relaxes and your mind softens. Thoughts don't disappear instantly, but their dominance over you is lost. You gain the distance to observe them like clouds drifting across the sky. In that small space that opens between one thought and the next, something precious begins to appear: mental clarity. With this clarity, you realize that most anxieties stem not from an urgent situation, but from the internal buzzing created by the mind. You understand that the majority of stress is born from constructing scenarios that are unlikely even to happen. Staying in the moment allows you to experience every event without magnifying it with unnecessary burdens. When an emotion arises, it teaches you to pause briefly instead of immediately being swept away, and to remain there without letting that emotion control you. This small conscious pause can turn the whole day in a completely different direction, because it opens up a space to give a response chosen with awareness instead of an automatic reaction. When you remain committed to returning to the present moment, you strengthen your mind like a tool sharpened by a master's whetstone. It becomes more resilient and clearer in the face of chaos. You begin to see colors, sounds, and details that you hadn't noticed before because your mind was buried within itself. Life regains its texture, meaning, and beauty. Even eating turns into a different experience. Walking feels more mindful. Listening to someone ceases to be a courtesy done while your mind is elsewhere. It becomes a genuine shared experience where you are truly present. Anger is short-lived, anxieties dissolve, and tensions loosen. With every return to the breath, an invisible bridge is built between your body and your mind. This bridge does not remind you of the burden of the past or the uncertainty of the future. It only makes you feel that this moment is the only reality that needs to be managed. When you manage this moment, you take control of the day. Over time, presence becomes not a habit, but a sanctuary. Thus, you realize that true peace flourishes not when conditions are perfect, but when you are fully present with your entire being. 5. Softening with kindness. Opening the door to inner kindness is one of the deepest ways to lighten the invisible weights you carry in your soul. Due to past fractures, unspoken disappointments, or unfulfilled expectations, your heart tightens and closes over time. This closing turns into an unconsciously woven wall. You think it protects you, but it actually distances you from the world and from people. Emotional rigidity may seem like a defense, but in the long run, it only exhausts you. Yet, true kindness is a transformative force that softens thoughts, relaxes the body, and allows you to reconnect with the most sincere side of your humanity. When you approach yourself with compassion, your mind clarifies. When you approach others with understanding, your relationships become more natural and open. Stoic philosophers emphasize the softness of the heart and measured conduct to lead a serene life. According to them, kindness is managing emotions consciously, approaching events with a balanced attitude, and making virtuous decisions without succumbing to anger. This approach is not a weakness, it is the maturity and inner mastery of the soul. Many people unconsciously carry resentment in their hearts. Their faces are stern, their reactions are cold, and they choose to judge before knowing. This rigidity harms the person most of all. When your heart hardens, love cannot enter and peace cannot go out. Deep kindness begins with looking honestly at the tensions within yourself. Asking yourself, where is the real pain? What is exhausting me? What have I been carrying that I no longer need to? Is the beginning of transformation. Approaching these questions without judgment calms your mind and returns your emotions to their natural rhythm. This space created by inner compassion is also reflected in your relationships. You can show understanding to your loved ones and even to the people you struggle with. This approach is not about forgetting injustices or allowing your boundaries to be violated. It is simply choosing not to carry the burdens accumulated within you anymore. Because kindness is not a gift given to others. It is the freedom of your own heart. Small acts of kindness shown in daily life completely change the structure of your relationships. When you truly listen to the person in front of you, give them space, and don't react harshly immediately, communication becomes more humane. Being patient with yourself, letting go of the pressure of perfection, and accepting that you have the right to make mistakes allows your mind to trust you. When you are hard on yourself, your soul shrinks. When you are kind, it expands. This inner expanse eventually melts away resentment, tension, and coldness. Relationships deepen, your soul lightens, and your heart softens. You realize there is no need to fight with life, and that the essential things you need are clarity, distinctness, and calmness. True strength is not lacking the kindness that the world sometimes forgets, because being able to remain kind is not passivity, it is a conscious way of being. When you act with inner love, you heal both yourself and your surroundings. And when your heart softens, your burdens lighten and life becomes more bearable. 6. Inner-born happiness. Building a happiness that is not dependent on people or conditions is one of the most liberating decisions you can make in your life. Many people live by waiting for the outside world to change to feel good. They hope for the right person to arrive, an unexpected opportunity to appear, or for conditions to become perfect. This waiting unknowingly makes the person passive. You get the feeling that life owes you something, and you believe that your happiness depends on the actions of others. However, when your inner world is in confusion, no external event can provide lasting balance. True satisfaction begins the moment you choose not to link your peace to people standing on slippery ground, to ideas that exist today and disappear tomorrow, or to changeable conditions. The fundamental principle taught by the Stoic philosophers is exactly this. True serenity is not a gift from outside. It is a structure built step by step within. According to them, the measure of personal worth is not the praise of others, the titles acquired or external successes, but the clarity of the mind, the management of emotions, and the person's ability to maintain their own inner order. When you find the source of happiness within yourself, your behavior transforms fundamentally. You don't try to gather attention, you don't beg for love, and you move away from the molds you squeezed yourself into for the approval of others. You realize that your emotions don't need to be shifted by the actions of others. Life lightens when you understand that you can be your own inner sanctuary. Seeing that your joy is independent of the actions of others is not a sign of coldness. It is a sign of a mature stance. Thus, you can love without the fear of loss, put in effort without emotional wear and tear, and enjoy without feeling dependent. Instead of being a satellite revolving around others, you settle in the center of your own peace. You realize that even on your hardest days, you can stand up without waiting for external support, because your stability is not linked to fragile areas. Transforming the inner dialogue you have with yourself is one of the cornerstones of this inner structure. When you replace thoughts that diminish you with those that empower you, you establish a solid foundation nourished by gratitude every morning. Your mind begins to see the abundance you have, instead of focusing on what is missing. When you stop linking your worth to the appreciation of others, you reclaim your mental freedom. Your happiness is not tossed around in the storms created by others. It is rooted within yourself. Thus, happiness ceases to be a random event. It turns into a solid state that you consciously grow with choices every day. 7. Listening to inner purpose. Discovering your personal mission happens not in the middle of a crowd, but in those rare moments when you dare to truly listen to yourself. Life is constantly surrounded by ideas that impose the truths and expectations of others onto you. In such times, you begin to follow paths whose source is not your own, but arise only from external pressures. In that silent struggle you undertake to conform and not disappoint anyone, you gradually quiet your own voice. Things that once excited you lose their meaning. A day comes when you feel you are moving forward, but that this direction is not yours. At this point, conscious solitude turns into a powerful compass that silences the noise and redirects you to the right route. Stoic philosophers teach that when the mind settles down, the inner voice becomes the most reliable guide. According to them, personal purpose is not something built externally. It is a sense of direction discovered internally by observing one's own nature. When you find a quiet moment and turn to yourself, you realize that a calling for direction, which has always been there, is within you. Perhaps it has been buried for years under necessities, anxieties, and indecision, but it is still there. Listening to it requires courage. Seeing that you have moved away from yourself can be painful, but knowing that you can return is equally liberating. Having a clear purpose fundamentally changes your life energy. You no longer wake up just because a new day has started, but because you have a reason. Fears may not completely disappear, but they lose their power to stop you, because you now know your way. In moments when others impose their dreams upon you, you exhibit a firm stance because you prioritize your own voice. Loneliness ceases to be a terrifying void. It becomes a strategic partner, where you review your emotions and evaluate whether your actions align with your desires. You question every behavior you maintain by saying, "I have to," and you find the courage to leave behind the places that don't let you breathe. Writing down your desires without caring what others think is like opening the window of a room that has been closed for years. Light fills the room, the mind expands, and things that once seemed distant become attainable because they are now nourished by the reality within you. When you recognize your talents and use them to establish your path, a strong connection forms between who you are and who you want to be. Even dedicating a brief moment each week to your vision deepens this connection and rekindles that inner fire that the world tries to extinguish. When you realize that purpose is not a destination, but a continuous movement that fills life with meaning, you proceed with enthusiasm, not obligation, and this progress changes the tone of your entire life. Great, the power of being present. The most powerful way to weaken emotional dependency is to deepen the connection you have with the present moment. When your mind gets stuck in painful memories that are already gone, or starts generating negative possibilities that haven't happened yet, a turmoil occurs within you. To escape this chaos, you turn outward. You try to take refuge in relationships that don't contribute to you, in constant distractions, or in stimuli that only suppress the noise. Yet when you learn to shift your attention to the now, you encounter a peace that asks nothing of you, only accepting your existence. This means you stop running away from yourself and learn to build a calm shelter within yourself, and it opens the door to emotional freedom. Stoic philosophers emphasize the conscious use of attention as a fundamental skill for tranquility of the soul. According to them, the issue is observing the moment without forcing it, gently calling the mind back whenever it wanders, and finding strength by establishing conscious contact with reality. When you take a deep breath and return to the moment, you realize that most of your anxieties are nourished not by concrete events, but by the stories your mind creates. The present moment needs no embellishment. The only thing it expects from you is to stand there, noticing your breath and your body. Modern life normalizes constant movement and multitasking, but the cost of this speed is losing the connection with yourself. Therefore, reducing the habit of multitasking is a form of care you show to yourself. Focusing completely on a single task, walking without rushing, or genuinely tasting your food are powerful practices that restore balance. When you remember that your life is lived right now, not in the past or the future, that sharp need for external stimuli diminishes. The urge to fill the voids, to escape silence, or to occupy yourself gives way to a state of serene acceptance. Saying to yourself, "I am here right now," is a powerful inner reminder that declares you are taking back control. You may not be able to completely stop the flow of thoughts, but you can choose to prevent them from dragging you. This is where real freedom begins. This practice gives you back the right not to surrender to every dark scenario your mind produces. Over time, anxiety decreases because you stop chasing imaginary threats. Your emotions become regulated because you return to the flow instead of clinging to past events. Eventually, you realize that true peace is not about what you possess, but about how you live this moment. Respecting your own rhythm. A great burden lifts from you when you truly grasp that your path is unique to you, and that you are not competing with anyone. You often feel left behind, not good enough, or lost because you try to make sense of your life through the measures of others. You see the successes people highlight, and unconsciously fall into the thought, "I should have been there too." This endless comparison exhausts your energy, weakens your inner voice, and shadows your sense of peace. However, life is not a race where everyone proceeds at the same speed. Every person has their own unique time, their own cycle, and their own development. Stoic philosophers emphasized that every individual carries a unique destiny, and every journey flows with a personal rhythm. According to them, freedom lies not in evaluating oneself by looking at the progress of others, but in calmly walking by focusing on strengthening one's own character. Comparison, on the other hand, is one of the most debilitating behaviors committed against inner peace, because this attitude causes you to overlook your own silent growth and feel inadequate despite going through a different process. Remember, Everyone has invisible struggles they live within themselves. You are experiencing the full reality of your own process, while looking only at the curated and embellished life segments of others. Therefore, comparisons are unfair from the start, because they are not the correct unit of measure. The transformation begins when you pull your gaze from the adjacent lanes and turn it onto your own path. You begin to respect the pauses in your own time and to take your steps without having to show them to others. The effort to keep up with someone else's speed gives way to a sincere confidence that comes from moving forward with your own truths. The thought, "I must get there first," loses its importance, replaced by the awareness, "I must walk by staying true to myself." The tension created by competition dissolves, and a natural serenity replaces the feeling of rush. In this process, consciously reducing the influence of social media, which distorts your perception, makes it easier to return to your center. The more you focus on the lives of others, the further you move away from your own creative power. However, when you record your small progress, you see the path you have taken more clearly. Celebrating your own success allows you to reclaim your energy. When you accept that your path is unique to you, the pressure to be perfect and the fear of conforming disappear. You become someone who is more self-assured, more conscious, and strongly connected to their essence. True satisfaction is hidden not in trying to keep up with the world's speed, but in moving forward by trusting the rhythm of your own soul. As you enjoy your own speed, life becomes both more meaningful and more peaceful. 3. A mind at peace with fear. Fear begins to lose its effect the moment you intend to face it and stop running away. You often think your fears are too powerful, intense, or complex to overcome, but the main thing that magnifies them is this state of avoidance. Every moment you ignore them, those shadows expand. When you try to silence them with distractions, they become even more insistent. As you hide them, they begin to govern you without letting you know. They sign invisible agreements under your decisions. Solitude and silence are not as threatening as they are thought to be. On the contrary, they are powerful tools that allow you to understand what truly frightens you and what thoughts lie beneath it. When you are alone with yourself, you realize that the fears that feel like a giant weight are actually just tangled thoughts waiting to be addressed. Stoic philosophers taught that pain arises not from events, but from the way the mind interprets them. According to them, fears become manageable when they are observed with a calm mind, analyzed without magnification, and met with a conscious stance instead of a frantic reaction. Fear gains the most power when you postpone it, by looking from the side and saying, "I'll think about this later." When you choose not to touch that subject at all, it spreads in your mind like a virus. But when you center it and observe it directly, you see that it is not as concrete as you thought. Perhaps a word spoken years ago, an experience that left a mark inside, or an unfair comparison you made to yourself is its source. Calmly dealing with fears is not weakness. It is the courage to say, "I am ready to understand you." Writing down your fear on paper allows the ambiguity it creates in your mind to resolve. The fear that turns into words loses its magical and colossal appearance. It is also important to pay attention to what happens in your body when this feeling arises. The constriction in your chest, the acceleration of your breath, the tightening in your stomach. Noticing these is part of understanding. When you take a deep, slow breath, your nervous system relaxes. Your mind understands that it is not facing a real threat, and the fear retreats. This awareness moves you away from impulsivity. You now make decisions with a clear intention, not with panic. When you realize that most fears are nourished not by an external danger, but by an internal interpretation, you take back the great power over your life. Seeing that you can examine your own shadows renews your self-confidence. When you look at fear, anxiety lightens. When you face it, courage grows. And finally, when you understand that what you were running from was only a thought disguised as a threat, the mind is set free, and you transform into a more solid character. 11. Centering yourself. When you prioritize yourself and place yourself at the center of your life, your stance changes completely, even if the outside world remains the same. You realize that your energy is not limitless and that your peace is too valuable to be sacrificed to the arguments of others or to storms that do not belong to you. Valuing yourself is not a selfish attitude. It is a sign of emotional awareness that realizes that if you don't maintain your own balance, no one else can do it for you. When you choose yourself, you feel clearer, more determined, and more resilient against external pressures. According to Stoic philosophers, an educated mind protects its inner peace like a valuable treasure. According to them, an honorable attitude is not falling for small provocations, maintaining one's own inner order no matter how much external noise there is, and focusing only on issues you can influence. As your self-respect increases, you stop participating in discussions that serve no purpose but to exhaust you. You stop trying to explain yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. You refuse to take on the responsibilities of others and learn to choose the issues you will fight for. Realizing that many conflicts are actually a reflection of emotional burdens that do not belong to you provides a lightening freedom. Looking out for your own well-being allows you to see more clearly which environments you should be in and which ones are healthier to stay away from. You understand that not every word deserves an answer, not every outburst requires a defense, and not every emotion everyone experiences has to settle on your shoulders. This stance is not coldness, it is emotional wisdom. Thus, you succeed in living without unnecessarily carrying guilt, without wearing yourself out, trying to fix things that cannot be resolved, and without draining your energy trying to change people who do not want to be convinced. Your behavior transforms. You pause before answering, choose your words carefully, and move forward without succumbing to provocations. Saying, "There is no need for this," is not indifference. It is an indication of the importance you place on preserving your inner peace. Your focus shifts from small disagreements to your personal development. When you dedicate your time to your goals and the habits that strengthen you, the impact of criticisms lessens, and conflicts diminish faster, because your attention is now on building, not defending. When you abandon the need to be right about everything or to have the last word, your life becomes simpler and more balanced. When you direct your energy to the areas that empower you, instead of spending it on the problems of others, both your mind and your heart gain a stronger structure. Prioritizing yourself not only elevates your quality of life, it creates an inner transformation. You now aim to establish a peaceful place within yourself, instead of trying to please everyone. 12. Reading people correctly. Your approach to life changes fundamentally when you truly grasp that the inner worlds of others are different from yours. You begin to realize that not everyone carries the same emotions, acts with the same mindset, and may not show the same calmness you do in certain situations. Every person lives within a story that only they know, often with wounds they silently carry. Most reactions are not actually directed at you. They are an external manifestation of the person's own internal conflicts and mental exhaustion. When you adopt this truth, life becomes more understandable. You stop taking things personally, reacting hastily and interpreting every word as a threat. Stoic philosophers argued that understanding human nature is the foundation of a harmonious life. They remind us that every individual acts according to their own beliefs, their own emotional capacity, and their own limitations. This perspective allows you to observe without judgment and to see that the behavior of the person in front of you often stems from an internal reason. When you notice the harshness in a glance, the rudeness in a sentence, or the impatience in an action, you have the chance to understand that the person in front of you may be having a difficult day, dealing with a distress they cannot express, or struggling with a strong insecurity. This awareness does not weaken you. On the contrary, it strengthens you because it allows you to respond from a more balanced point rather than from a place of hurt. Observing without judgment is one of the most effective skills that can be developed over time. This includes being able to see the emotion of the person in front of you without interpreting it as an attack. No one reacts in a vacuum. Behind every behavior, there is a trace from the past, a fresh disappointment or a fear that is difficult to control. There is an important balance here. Understanding does not mean condoning intolerable behavior. Empathy is not about allowing disrespect. It is simply being able to set a more conscious boundary by knowing the emotional root of the other party. Letting go of the assumption of bad intent is the key to mental peace. The mind is often inclined to exaggerate events and attach unnecessary meaning to every word. When you notice this impulse and stop it, tensions are greatly reduced. Smart empathy is not about shouldering someone else's burden or trying to save someone who does not want to be resolved. Over time, this understanding creates a transformation in your relationships. You become more patient because you are now aware. You become calmer because you are not triggered. You become freer because you don't take anything upon yourself. You discover that true peace is born not from trying to change people, but from not losing your own point of balance while trying to understand them. 13. Breaking the cycle of dependency. The moment you realize that something or someone is starting to increase its influence over you, a powerful opportunity arises to take back control before this situation turns into an emotional chain. You often define this feeling of dependency as love, attachment, or habit. However, deep down, this situation is a sign of an inner void trying to fill itself by clinging to the first external source it finds. Constantly thinking about it, feeling the need to have every step you take approved, or living with the fear of losing that external support that is your foundation gradually becomes an insidious cycle. This cycle unknowingly exhausts your energy, weakens your determination, and narrows your scope of movement. However, when you show the courage for an honest confrontation, you can stop this flow before it completely overwhelms you. According to Stoic philosophers, true emotional freedom begins with a person's ability to manage their own mind and desires. They teach that inner worth should not be dependent on external factors. When you need someone or something, you have actually handed over your control to a place outside your own power. Dependency arises when the connection a person has with themselves weakens, when self-esteem is shaken, when insecurities are not healed internally. The mind seeks external support. This sanctuary, which seems secure at first, gradually turns into a weight that prevents you from moving, and it causes you to confuse the desire for completion with love. When something begins to exert influence over you, your body signals this with signs: uneasiness in its absence, intense anxiety when the possibility of loss arises, and a chaotic emotional fluctuation when your expectation is not met. At this point, you need to ask yourself clearly, do you truly want that person or that object? Or are you seeking the security, identity, or feeling of acceptance you believe it provides you? Reclaiming your center does not mean turning your back on the world. It is about proving to yourself that you can rise on your own. Individual actions like reading a book, walking, or creating something new allow you to rebuild your emotional resilience by leaning into yourself, not outward. When you value yourself, you don't feel the need to cling to something for approval. Emotional honor is the determination not to surrender your inner peace to external influences that change according to the day's conditions, knowing what you deserve. When you take back control, life clarifies. You now act with the strength of your stance, not with the fear of loss. When you don't allow anything to be your weak point, your mind expands, and you return the place at the center of your life to the person who truly deserves it, yourself. At the end of this journey, you can now see this more clearly. Peace, happiness, strength, and balance are not gifts to wait for someone to give you. They are inner structures that you patiently grow within yourself, shape with your choices, and solidify a little more every day. The behaviors, approval, or love of others may fluctuate, but when you learn to stand in your own center, those waves cannot toss you around as much as before. Now, let's conclude with a sentence that seals this journey. This sentence is not just a word, it is a new direction you give to your subconscious, your signature on your own power. Today, I am building my inner peace myself. With this word, your transformation officially begins. Now your life will flow according to the rhythm of your own inner stability, not the outside world. Thank you for watching.